So given the surprising amount of video game adaptations in the works and the growing possibility that some of them might actually be good, if there was ever a time for Rockstar to greenlight a Red Dead Redemption TV show, now would probably be the time. But either way, today I thought it'd be fun to imagine what such a show might look like by casting all the main characters of 2010's Red Dead Redemption for live action. Now, to keep it interesting and realistic, I will be applying some ground rules. So no returning cast members from the original game, no ideal actors that have aged out of contention, and a limit on A-list Hollywood stars, so only actors who would justifiably sign up for a long-running TV show. And obviously these are just my suggestions, so if you disagree, by all means comment your picks below. But with that out of the way, let's get started. So obviously, first up we have the main man himself, John Marston, who's probably the most crucial casting of all, given that the whole plot revolves around him. So for this character we need an actor who can convey a rough and ready type, who despite his hard exterior clearly has a good heart with strong principles and a slight hopeful naivety about him. For that reason, it's easy to see why many love the idea of Norman Reedus for the job, given that he plays a very similar kind of character on The Walking Dead, and both looks and sounds the part too.
She gets hurt, she dies, she catches a fever, she gets taken out by a walker, she gets hit by lightning. Anything happens to her, I'll kill you.
With that being said, Reedus is already 16 years older than John Marston, and given how iconic an actor he's become in recent years, it might be difficult to see past Daryl Dixon. That's why for me, my choice would instead be the lesser known actor Logan Marshall Green, who you might vaguely recognise from Prometheus. However, outside of that, he did an amazing job in the massively underrated TV series The Quarry, in which he plays a deadly but vulnerable ex-con manipulated into killing again to protect his wife.
You ain't got 30,000 to give me, do you?
Hey, why don't I just pull this trigger? Something we both know I'm damn good at.
But what really sold me on this actor for the part was his role in the Netflix show Damnation, where at times it felt like he was straight up channeling John Marston, especially the more badass, gritty side of his persona.
Where's my money?
If I knew you, I might even miss having you around.
Well, good news. I'm not going nowhere.
So given that Logan Marshall Green has already had experience in playing the lead on multiple TV shows, yet still hasn't really had a breakthrough mainstream role, he might just be the perfect candidate to convincingly bring John Marston to life on the small screen. Now early on in Red Dead Redemption, we're introduced to the main overarching villain of the plot, Edgar Ross, a corrupt federal agent. And as a character, he's a snide, condescending man of the law who asserts himself over others mainly through verbal threats and pure arrogance. So for that reason, I think Ted Levine would nail this role, as he's pretty much made a career out of playing intimidating creeps and mustachioed lawmen, so really it would just be a case of combining the two, a lot like his character in Shutter Island.
You're as violent as they come. I know this because I'm as violent as they come. If the constraints of society were lifted, and I was all that stood between you and a meal, you would crack my skull with a rock and eat my meaty parts.
Another important character at the start of Red Dead Redemption is Bonnie McFarlane, who might seem pretty innocent and harmless with her blonde hair and blue eyes, but is actually a capable frontierswoman, not afraid to speak her mind or get her hands dirty. And that's actually a pretty spot-on summary of most of the characters played by actress Vanessa Kirby, who's clearly more than capable of dealing with the physicality of the part, and also has that charisma to do justice to the witty, flirtatious conversations shared between her and John.
You can't possibly be John Mark.
I'm not, actually. It's an alias.
I suppose it's better than John Doe. Is there another name you prefer?
Is there somewhere we could talk privately?
In fact, I like Lark. What's of a certain ring?
We don't have a lot of time.
I'll be honest with you, a man of your reputation, I was expecting someone uglier.
Now, as far as villains go, Bill Williamson is quite a major one, given that he's the first ex-member of the old gang that John is tasked with killing. And he's a pretty simple character, portrayed as a drunken, slow-witted, quick-tempered grunt who often ends up being the punchline of other people's jokes. So back before the insane success of Stranger Things, I would have said David Harbour would have made a perfect Bill Williamson, but given that he's probably out of contention now, I actually think Ryan Hurst would be a way better fit. Because not only does he have that gruff, physical presence of Bill, but he also has a history of playing the capable but overly loyal muscle for gangs in various TV shows, so I think he'd be really at home with this kind of part. Also introduced quite early on is Marshall Johnson, who unlike Ross is a far more virtuous lawman, but still a tough, no-nonsense individual who isn't afraid to put people in their place. So for me, I think Sam Neill would be a great fit for that firm but fair kind of character, as he seems to have a knack for playing capable but cantankerous authority figures that still manage to be likeable.
We will discuss our business on Sunday, on the agreed day at the allotted time, and at the place that has already been determined. You made your point. Good night, Mr. Shelby.
The second ex-gang member that John hunts down is Javier Escuella, who's far more cunning and cheerful than the likes of Bill Williamson, but a bit of an enigma overall due to how much his character changes between Red Dead Redemption and its sequel. But for me, I think Diego Luna would have been the perfect casting for this character, as demonstrated by his leading role in Andor. But given that Javier doesn't have all that much screen time, I think a more realistic alternative would be Max Arciniega, who you probably recognise as Crazy 8 from Breaking Bad. But what actually made me think of him for Javier was his role in Old Henry as Stillwell, a pretty minor character that the actor manages to make into far more than the sum of its parts.
¿A vas a llevar?
Al sheriff. Así es.
Él no me preocupa.
Another classic character from the game is Nigel West Dickens, an eccentric travelling salesman with a huge personality and an answer for everything. So the big challenge for this casting is to find an older actor capable of tapping into that same kind of madcap energy for the small screen. And that's why I think Wayne Duvall might be a good option, given that he has a track record for playing loud, over-the-top characters and has that presence to convincingly hold the attention of a crowd.
And these boys here, they trampled all over our venerated observances and rituals. Now, this here music is over, and I had no...
Now, one of the coolest characters from Red Dead Redemption is Landon Ricketts, as the creators really lent in hard into their classic old-school gunslinger archetype. So with that being the case, I'd struggle to think of anyone better positioned to play the part than Sam Elliott, who's shown he can play that Landon Ricketts type character over and over again, and even as recently as 2021 in the Yellowstone spin-off 1883.
Go east, go south, go anywhere but my way. If I see you again, I'm gonna kill you.
Also likely to appear in a Red Dead TV show would be Seth Briars, an unhygienic, crazy prospector that isn't all that far removed from Gollum in terms of how he looks and behaves. Now, without trying to offend him, I actually think Mackenzie Crook would be a solid pick, obviously with a whole lot of makeup, as he's already shown he can play these strange and slimy characters, much like he did in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Please, little Harry, please give it back. Don't bite it.
Hold loose the mooring line!
It's got me eye. You won't give it back.
Another pretty big character in the latter half of the game is the Mexican freedom fighter Abraham Reyes, who on the face of it seems like this principled, heroic ladies' man, when in reality he's kind of a scumbag and a sellout. So I think Rodrigo Santoro would be a good casting for the role, as he certainly has that stereotypical charisma and good looks, but has also shown in previous roles that he can go pretty dark too, so that ability to flip between the two personas could work really well.
Why not? You're all here, indulging your particular vices, and so I've come to indulge mine.
Now, as far as major characters go, Abigail's another crucial one, the tough-as-nails wife of John Marston, who's shown to be very motherly and caring, but also pretty opinionated and strict on the whole. Now for me, Michelle Monaghan has to be the top choice, who's not only a dead ringer for Abigail, but I also literally just watched her play a very similar role in her most recent horror film, Blood, where she gave a really strong performance that I think would translate well here.
A mother would do anything to save your child.
So up next we have Uncle, a fan favourite character, given that he pretty much just acts as comic relief due to his stupidity and chronic laziness. And so it would be really cool to see him brought to life, and I actually think Tom Waits is the man to do it. Now that might seem like a very random choice if you haven't been keeping up with his career, but in recent years Waits has actually appeared in a lot of movies, including The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where he really showcased his talents as a comedic actor, in which he plays a character who's pretty much uncle in everything but name.
Well, maybe just one. How high can a bird count anyway?
Now, anybody that's completed Red Dead Redemption will know that the son of John Marston, Jack, plays a pretty integral role in the overall story, which the TV show would certainly want to cover. And given the significance of the scenes that involve this character, I think it would require a significant actor to faithfully do them justice. So in my opinion, Josh Hartnett would make for a really good grown-up Jack Marston. In fairness, there's an argument he could be a fitting John Marston, but I think Hartnett has a younger, more intense vibe about him that would gel better with the character of Jack.
What happened between you and your father? Why risk your life to face him now? Why does he send man after man to hunt you down?
He wants me to answer for what I've done.
So last, but certainly not least, is Dutch, who despite never being playable in the games, is arguably the main character of the entire franchise. And with that being the case, it's no surprise that Dutch is an incredibly layered, complex character, highly intelligent, charismatic and idealistic, but deep down a brutal narcissist. So ultimately, whoever ends up playing him is going to have one hell of a job on their hands. And after a lot of consideration, I think Jon Hamm might actually be able to pull it off. Firstly, ever since Mad Men, his acting career has pretty much been built on the fact he's exceedingly charismatic, delivering dialogue and monologues with a patter that's very reminiscent of Dutch.
It wasn't always like this. And I don't just mean you could find a clerk come check-in time. No, 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 no. This place used to be hustling and bustling. Tahoe's best kept secret. I mean, it was always a bit of a novelty, yeah, sure, of course. But there's state fair novelty and then there's old horse novelty.
However, obviously, anybody playing Dutch also needs to show just as much intensity when it comes to the darker, more psychotic elements of the character. And again, Hamm has shown that he has that ability to come across as unhinged and truly menacing, often in a really understated way.
You said everything except or else. Assuming this information is true, which it isn't, it sounds to me like you're blackmailing me. When you threaten someone in this manner, you should be aware of the fact that if your information is powerful enough to make them do what you want, what else can it make them do?
The actor's also kind of in that sweet spot right now age-wise, where he could probably convincingly play the younger Dutch of Red Dead Redemption 2, as well as the older, more weary Dutch of the first game. But they were just my ideas for castings, so let me know yours in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, let me know with a like so that I can see whether you'd be up for a follow-up video covering Red Dead Redemption 2. In the meantime, you might also want to check out this video right here.